Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Here we go. Admit all.
Wow. It's Wednesday already, Joel.
No, it can't be. You know what it is? It's that we're used to the rhythm of doing the briefing on Thursdays. So when we do it on Wednesdays, it's like, what? It's already time for the briefing? What's going on? Well, wherever you are, it looks very sunny, and wherever I am, it's kind of gray here in New York. Are you in Southern California?
I am in Southern California, yeah.
And is it sunny?
Near the beach. Sure. At the moment it's sunny. It's mostly been rainy. I think there's an overall feeling of rain across the United States right now. Whatever that feeling is, it feels like the weather is real. We're dealing with something happening on the planet.
Well, let me just say there's a bunch of folks dropping in to the weekly briefing. So if you're looking for the weekly briefing, you're in the right spot. I'm just going to say hello to Meg, to Alex. Corey's coming in, Manuel, Phil, I see you there. Chris Roth, the other house in the house. Stefan, Phil. Oh, I already said Phil. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. David, I missed David. Good to have you all with us. We'll get started here in just about 30 seconds. We try and keep this to a pretty tight 30-minute window. But Tim, I think we have a very, very relevant, timely topic today.
It definitely feels that way. Like this, we've been looking at this for months. I actually posted something in RevCommunity and on LinkedIn so people could just see a playlist of videos that we've been talking about this and recognizing what is causing this trend, why is it showing up, and then even this topic specifically, some ideas of game planning around this moment in time. So,
well, let me
here it is.
I'll use that as our kickoff here because I think we're just about 2 minutes past the hour, which is my cue. So, welcome everybody. I'm Joel. This is the weekly briefing brought to you by RevThink. This is that time of the week where we get together and for 30 minutes, Tim and I share what are we hearing owners talk about, what's an issue we've become aware of, what's a trend that we're spotting, because we're keeping our eye on a few hundred creative studios and production companies around the world. And with that, Tim, I'm going to tee you up super simple here. First of all, say hi. And second of all, why is this topic our topic today, game planning the current downturn?
Sure. Well, first of all, hello. It's good to be with all of you. This is the once a week time where we get to kind of look at what's happening in the industry, ask ourselves some of the bigger questions, and then we kind of look inside the industry with the agencies that we're working with and clients that we have to ask bigger questions, understand trends, and really kind of project out to you what we see and then the strategies we have moving forward. So it is great to be with you this week. There is something specific happening. It really feels like if I were to ask any of you, you might say, it felt slow in November and December, definitely slow in January, and February feels unusual. And I've been myself trying to remove this bias of a total huge downturn, thinking, well, is this just a regular January and February with a slow December attached to it so it feels extra heavy? Or is there a reality that the conversations and the projections that we have out there are worse than we can anticipate with that kind of visibility?
Yeah, I'll say this, Tim. So for everyone's benefit here, Tim and I and the other consultants at RevThink, we work with each of us, a handful of owners one-on-one inside of these, what we call VIP engagements. And I recently noticed that every single one of the companies I'm working with one-on-one has said, is it just us or is it everyone? And they've all said the same thing. So it's not just like the average, it's now everyone saying, hey, I think last fall, like big tech kind of took their foot off the gas. And then there were the layoffs that happened in the winter, and there was this tapping of the brakes. And now there's some slamming going on. And I don't think that we're saying, for anyone to freak out, but it does raise the question, how could we game plan? How could we actually have a strategy called, whether we're busy and things are cranking like they've been for the past 2 years almost as we went through the pandemic, versus maybe things are going to be a little slow and a little quiet for the next quarter or two. Typically there's this pendulum, right, that swings back and forth. So Tim, I'm always kind of thinking about how do we get through this, but also how do we position ourselves so that when that pendulum starts to swing back, we can capitalize and not be in a position where we say, oh, damn, I overreacted and now I'm late and things are heating up again, but I'm not in a position to take advantage. But let's just get through the dark part of this story first. Where are we going to start on?
Yeah, I'm going to share a graphic that we shared, I think about 6 months ago, maybe 5 months ago,
Okay.
For one of the weekly briefings here.
Okay.
And just to kind of share this again is, projects, or when you're looking at cash flow, usually it starts at our starting point, and no matter what, it always has a downward curve, because eventually if you take enough time with current resources, and you'll always go down. What we want to be able to do is kind of be able to look at the ability to engage projects in order to see them on a flat line. But whoops, I went the wrong way. And projects kind of have this up and down variable to them anyways, right? So this is the wave we're constantly riding. Sometimes it feels more like a roller coaster than a wave, but you kind of get this up and down momentum. What we do is we manage cash, right? So through our cash flow system, our cash board, we're able to see is like, well, let's retain cash when we need to, spend cash when it's available, so that we're actually, even though projects go up and down, we as a company have a flat line and idea to it. But what has happened is, in our industry, is that we've kind of have this weird pattern now where those projects weren't coming on a regular basis like we've seen over the last few years. And this stair-step momentum of projects has now created a little bit of a gap for us. And that gap isn't just project awards, but it's also a cash gap. Oh, the regular income or regular momentum I was catching on with projects now have these hiccups in it, and I'm loose with cash, and then void of cash at some points. So we asked a question a few months ago, well, what if it does keep on turning? What is our overall exposure? And that was a question we asked a few months ago is, are we ready for this moment? I think what we've been anticipating is exactly the moment we see right now. So when you have a slowdown like we've been seeing, we get this like buildup now of pressure in our system. And the clients who have been slowing things down or putting on the brakes, it took a while for the awarded projects to finish themselves out, even though the projects actually stopped flowing a few months ago. And what we've seen is the current projects have worked themselves through, or what we had in our cash flows worked itself through. Also, outstanding accounts receivable have come across our bow, and we've spent outstanding accounts receivable. And then future sales are also gone. So it's not just the projects that are gone, but the outstanding AR and the long-term projects, all of that has now caught up to us. But Joel, kind of go back to your point. What happens next? Well, the work didn't go away, right? There is still advertising being pushed onto television sets everywhere. There's still work happening in social media. There are movies and shows coming out. So the work has gone somewhere, but the corporations, because of their cutbacks, I think have retained a little bit of that work in-house. And the people that kept their jobs are holding onto their jobs by working extra hard for a moment. But we know that's going to catch up to them. And then boom, the floodgates will open up. How do we position ourselves for the other side?
Well, you and I walked through 3 basic big ideas, big points, if we were going to game plan this downturn. I can't remember which was the first one of the 3. I've got the 3 here, but I can't remember which one is the first. Can you refresh my memory?
Yeah, I think what we want to tell people is, because of a downturn, number one thing you have to be aware of is your cash position. So how do you understand the cash position? Don't panic and just start cutting everything and getting rid of your space. And that's not a necessity for everyone. Some people that might be a reality. But staying in a cash position is very, very keen. And Joel, one thing you like to point out is please don't use debt to finance operations. It is the worst thing you can possibly do. It is pulling the boards off the wall to throw it in the fireplace. Really, really is. So if you're looking at finance your company through a debt position to keep operations going, you're at a very different position.
Yeah.
We have to you need to reach out to me right now. I'll do a cash flow meeting with you and we'll start building a cash game plan so that you don't do that. Very, very important at this moment.
So I know one common question when you talk about a cash position is people will say, how much, right? Is it a month, 1 month reserve? Is it a 1 year reserve? I generally like to have maybe like that 3 month, maybe a little bit leaner, depending on really the maturity of the company. If you're running a solid cash flow routine, it's amazing how much you don't have to have this giant pile of cash because that makes you lazy, right? We see that, Tim. And I would say this, the great thing about a really good cash flow, cash board is our term for it. And take up Tim on his offer, because he's not kidding. He'll build this cash board for you in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see like all the money coming in, all the money going out. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll encourage the owner to take that cash, that stockpile of cash, and take it away and put it in a savings account. So you have to run your business, let's say on $50,000 in the bank. Because here's what is really quickly over the next 12 weeks, am I running a profitable business or am I going out of business? Big difference between the two. And you want to see that very clearly if you take that cash reserve away and you just have this small amount of money. If you're having to dip into your line of credit or some other debt in order to stay afloat, you've got tough choices you have to make. And I don't like those choices. I had to make them all the time when I was running my studio back in the day. Totally get it. But right, your first job in business is to stay in business.
That's right. And again, like we're saying, number one, don't panic. We're not saying run out there and react and think this way. But the cash position, and by removing that extra cushion away from your cash board, what you see is a real burn rate. And what we're looking for is an adjusted burn rate. How do we adjust our burn rate to match what we can project and understand as real revenue? So we don't want to have magical revenue showing up of like, well, all I really need is, $50,000 and that will save the day. Well, and I say, well, where's that 50 coming from? Well, I don't know yet. Well, then we need to take that off the board and look at what the reality is. But we also have the ability to adjust production costs to match revenue, right? That's a really key part. And that's the use of the factors method, looking at your splits, understanding real revenue, understanding real expenses, and working within the parameters of revenue to determine production costs, not the other way around. This is not the moment where you have a production team trying to find revenue to match. This is a moment where you're looking at revenue and matching your production team.
I know there's like the sales mind in me wants the latter to be true, but the former, it's like you always say, like in a bad economy, like a strong studio versus a bad economy, the bad economy always wins. What's the line?
Yeah. A strong business versus a weak economy, the economy always wins. Yeah.
Okay, there it is. So but the encouragement here, I'm going to just kind of retranslate for anyone if you're wondering. Okay, so big point number 2 here is, how do you scale production to match your revenue? And the simple bullet points there that Tim went through was, you set your splits, right? So you look at your projections for the rest of the year and you create a scenario called, what if the rest of this year sucks? That's my downside game plan. Then you say, okay, if that's true, we're going to split our direct and our indirect expenses this way, which means every time we get a project, we put this much money into the project and we keep the rest for the business. Now we can actually see how projects that are coming in will play out over the next 6, 12, however many weeks. And this is where I would encourage people, Tim, you tell me if you agree. I don't want to let anybody go when things start to go slow. I get it. However, what often happens, because this is what I did, I remember keeping somebody on staff for a whole year, hoping that kind of 3D work was going to come back. What happens is when it comes time to make the decision and it's like, oh, we're not making enough money, but I love this person, I don't want to let them go. We make this very emotional decision called, I'll think about that tomorrow. I'll think about that tomorrow. And a year goes by. So our encouragement is if you look at your cash board and you say, gosh, if in 6 weeks or 12 weeks, I see this thing coming, I can make that decision now that if that situation doesn't improve, the decision is made now, not then. It's made now. So when that future comes, and if that's played out, it's simply, I made this decision 12 weeks ago. I'm not going to let 52 weeks get the better of me.
What I love about using the factors report is exactly that. You can premeditate decisions. You can ask yourself a question. What if we're a third less revenue? What if we're half the revenue? Will I still be viable? That's the question you have. How will I be viable with half the revenue? And when you put that out there on a very basic spreadsheet, you'll see the reality of, yeah, of course you'll be very viable. Here's the decisions you'd have to make to stay in that cash position, to keep yourself viable. And that premeditation, now as it plays itself out, you don't have to convince yourself at the last minute. You don't feel like you're being impulsive. And the ability to kind of look forward and think through the strategy of who and when and how becomes very important in that process. It's the scary moment where we've never thought about it. We have no way of analyzing it. And we're looking at our checking account and then we're wondering, what should we do?
Yeah.
There's a situation I could recall where a company had run out of money so far, they couldn't even lay off their employees because they had no ability to pay severance. So if you're not looking forward enough to understand what the cash impact is of your decisions, you can really, really be stuck. And that is a very bad day. I can tell you though, working with that company, we're able to turn things around, get people paid and bring their employees back on, and they're still in business today. So it's not even that's not the worst position you can be in. It doesn't run you out of business, but there's a reality of looking at cash impact and what it means to you and your business as you're making these decisions, and to premeditate is very important.
Did you see Ryan Summers? Thank you for the comment. Love that one, brother. This is starting to sound like how I approach my fantasy hockey season. What happens if my top 3 starters all go down with injuries at the same time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, what if I lose the next 3 pitches? Right? I mean, boy, I wish I had asked that question. This is taking me back about 8 years ago when it was like, what if we lose the next 5 pitches in a row? Because we did. Oh, if I just asked that question in advance, I would have, instead, like you said, Tim, kind of program my brain for, oh, well, I'll have to make those kinds of decisions if that plays out. But it played out kind of in real time. And then I just was caught. I was caught off guard. I was caught with wow, we just burned $400,000 in a quarter and all our savings are gone. Wait, what? Now what? I mean, that was a bad day.
Well, okay, we tell ourselves, right, one more job, just one more job, and we'll turn ourselves around. So we just wait for that one job, and yeah, you have to be smart.
Okay, so this third point, let's do a quick recap. So number 1 was what? Maintain a healthy cash position, right? So have a cash reserve and manage it. Use your factors report and manage that. Number 2 was the idea of scaling production to match revenue, which doesn't sound as fun as, it's not as fun as it might sound.
Yeah.
Number 3 was we talked about don't overprice. Because here's something I keep hearing people talk about is, hey, the projects that we're getting a shot at are lower budget. And we keep hearing from clients, oh, we don't have that kind of money like we had last year. So you're too expensive. We're going to go with the cheaper vendor. And my encouragement is, and I think what we're going to go through here, Tim, is remember that proper pricing is always an anchoring with presenting of options that are varying scope and complexity to solve the client's problem no matter what. So it's that high, medium, low. And if you don't do that, you are totally guessing and you're going to guess wrong. And in this economy, you're probably going to overshoot that price by such a large number that the client just freaks out and says, wow, those guys are really expensive. And they may not come back for a while because if they think you're just too expensive, they're going to not call you on the next one or the next one or the next one. So, I mean, Tim, my recommendation is do that gold, silver, bronze, whatever that presenting options is, and be prepared for the client to say, you know, we're going to go with that bronze option because right now we just don't have the funding. But you're still getting that revenue. Make sure you're not trying to get the gold idea done for the bronze price. You have to have a great solution at that bronze number, right?
Yeah. I kind of want to give the advice of like, check your ego at the door, but I think that's the wrong advice. In a way, like it's like, check your history at the door. Just because a price worked or a solution worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work for the present or the future. This economic shift that's happening is happening for a reason, which is the result of people asking new questions. What is possible? What should I be doing? What does responsibility look like? But the clients that give us projects are looking for a return on investment. So they're setting a price based off of the returns they're expecting. You don't want to imagine 2020 prices or 2021 scenarios in 2023. It's a different economy. There's different reasons to do things, and we have to be able to listen. So by setting those different price standards is really asking the question, where do you fall in your strategy? And how can we meet those needs and still be successful, deliver a great project, and kind of continue to work with you, gaining success as we move along? That one project is not your relationship with the client. So let's work the relationship, work the understanding, and come alongside our clients, and then have some understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and help them get there.
I know you just addressed it about the history. There is this part of us that just doesn't want to believe that from here on out, the budgets are only going to be this, because we're so convinced that, well, we just can't do that for that number. Okay. And my observation has been, because I had to go through several of these, like the desktop revolution and all these other pivots. I'm reminded of my favorite Buckminster Fuller term or quote, where he defined ephemeralization as, let me see if I can get this right, the process of doing more and more with less and less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. So the thought is this: if all budgets going forward for the rest of time are going to be half of what they were last year, first of all, I get it. I'm crying with you. Like, I'm dying. I can't believe, oh my God, really, I'm so sad because the golden days were so good. Okay, once I'm over that grief, it's time to roll up our sleeves and freaking get innovative and figure shit out. Like, it's just time to say, this is the new normal. What are we going to do? We're going to innovate. And innovation is painful. But if we don't, we're going to be those dinosaurs, like all the people that had flames and smokes, or the people that had the Quantel machines, and they just said, oh, we've got expensive this and that, and this is the way business gets done. And they're all gone. They all got disrupted. Yeah, totally. So let's not get disrupted. Let's get over it and move on.
Yeah, my stages are revelation leads to revolution, leads to evolution, right? And then it starts itself over again. So we've gone through that cycle before. There was a moment of panic. The pandemic hit, everything was shut down. We're not living that moment right now. Not everything is stopped. It's just evolving. So how do we take this moment of this change, this revolution that's taking place, and evolve ourselves? It's why we originally did our Revolve Accelerator, was to get back to the basics and understand it. And I see Ryan's comment here. I agree. There's principles of just basic fundamentals that when the going is good, we forget those. We get a little sloppy. We don't understand all the possibilities, and we haven't managed our leads in a proper way or projected our cash in a certain way. But the opportunities are still available to us. The projects are still coming in. They just might look and sound and feel different. How do we recognize that and revolve, change in this moment? So the upcoming accelerator, Joel, I think we put this on the calendar way before we knew we needed it, but the Revolve Accelerator we have starting, is it 2 weeks from now, is asking these questions again. What does this moment look like? And it's not a set curriculum. We're going to have a workshop based accelerator with business owners asking the question, what's happening right now? What are the fundamentals that we know need to be true? And how do we work with those with today's economy and work our way through it? That's how we'll get through this moment, getting back to the basics, knowing what we do well and executing it.
Yeah, it's funny how much a few weeks ago we were saying, we should do Revolve again. That should be one of the accelerators that we offer in the new studio accelerator that kicks off next week. And I remember at the time thinking, what are we going to talk about? And you said, oh, don't worry. And here we are. And now we know exactly what we're going to be talking about. It's for sure going to be this topic. And I'm sure a few other hot button ones that are just super present right now. Like, okay, what's happening in the industry? And more importantly, what do we do about it right now?
Yeah, our brains are really mean to us. It has a lot of bias built into it because it wants to find comfort, security, and efficiency. So it makes us skip questions that we should be asking. So to have a moment where you and a group of other business owners are going to ask new questions and find new opportunities, this is where necessity becomes the mother of innovation. This is the moment where the pivot actually helps us grow and change. But we have to survive the moment first and kind of get rid of some of the old baggage to make that moment happen ourselves.
And I'm just going to encourage everyone here, like, this is the job. Like, remember, let's not forget, we are creatives. We create. Whatever this future is that we're entering into, we're going to make it. We're going to create it. So we do have the power. It's not easy, so don't hear me wrong. It's not comfortable, but this is the same thing we've always done. It's like every year or two or three, we're repivoting, we're recalibrating, we're figuring out the new normal. So here we go again. I know it's exhausting. I'm tired, but it's going to be okay. In fact, I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So let's all get through this. Right? This downturn, whatever that is, we don't even know yet, but we'll get through it. And then there's going to be heady days ahead, and let's make sure we're prepared for those as well.
So let's just again recognize what we believe is happening, because other people have joined throughout this conversation. Maybe we could just recap real quick, but what we believe is happening right now and how to process the moment. Specifically, what's happened is this process began a few months ago. We saw it happening where the regularity of projects were not coming in for our clients like we were, like everyone was used to. Those hiccups and bumps and slowdowns is what it really felt like. Clients have said, well, wait a second. Projects that almost were awarded were slowed down, and then it finally released. So that little hiccup gave us a cash bump, but we were okay surviving because accounts receivable would eventually fill that in. So we kind of made it through cash wise. And then, of course, there was the hope and look forward of always future sales that would fill in any other issues that we had. When the sales dried up in December, the AR has dried itself up in January, and now our cash is gone in February. We're looking at a very different position. It's been coming all along, but we're now seeing some of the reality. And we're just in this moment looking at our cash flow, our cash boards, and saying, where did our money go? So we had 3 points. Yeah.
Yeah. Our three points of game planning this downturn was: 1, maintain a healthy cash position. Number 2, scale production to match revenue. And number 3 was don't overprice, right? Lean into presenting options and be prepared to solve problems at that lower price.
Right.
That's all. That's what I got.
Right size the solution for the moment, whatever that is. And please, we'll say it again, please don't panic. If you're in a moment of panic, this is when you DM us in Circle on the platform. Ask us. I'm happy to jump on cash flow calls all day long and walk people through the situation that they're in. Start building those plans. Teach them about the fundamentals of the splits. We have an accelerator coming up next week, the factors method. That's the direct and indirect splits to help you run and manage production. We're teaching that over the next quarter. And we have one-on-one advisors helping you implement it into your system. So we're happy to work within that.
See, here's my notes. Revolve. That's what we're going to talk about in Revolve. Because here's the other thought I just had, Tim, was we should consider inside of Revolve, like, of course, everyone is going to either build a cashboard or update their cashboard so that we can create this 12-week horizon for everybody. So they can, we can give them high beams on their clock, right?
Yeah.
We love that.
Project as far ahead as possible. Exactly.
By the way, something else I should mention, because I know a couple people were asking me about the pricing on Studio Accelerator, because they were saying, okay, so it's $3K a month for a whole year, and actually it's $3K per month, but for each quarter. Okay, so think of it as a $9K commitment to go through whatever that accelerator that you and your advisor decide is the best fit for you. It's just it pays out $3K a month, so it's a little easier to absorb and plan for that financially. So if anyone
you want to jump on a call with us, just go to the website right now, revthink.com, set up a schedule, and we'll walk you through the accelerators we have coming up, because Jumpstart, for anyone out there that hasn't taken Jumpstart, that's happening. We are teaching the factors method in the splits, so you have those fundamentals. And for those of you who've gone through those systems already and want to process something bigger, the Revolve accelerator is there to process this time in this moment. So we want to make something available for all of you to keep you moving forward.
And you forgot to mention the carve out your positioning with the fabulous Brittany Grinham, superstar copywriter to the stars of sorts. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here for this edition of the weekly briefing. Tim, as we say here, RevThink exists so each of you can thrive in your business and in your life and in career. So it's our honor and privilege to be with you every week. And Tim, I think we're going to get through this downturn, whatever this thing is. And I'm really glad we are going to be putting some really good resources and ideas and methods and mindsets into people as we get into the accelerators this quarter.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to be doing it. Thank you all for letting us be part of your journey, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye, everyone.